To order, we will convene a meeting of the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission. Would you all stand and face the flag, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've been asked to convene the meeting today on Hugh's behalf, so that's why I am the chair at this point. And I will ask each of the people at the table to introduce themselves and their position with respect to this board and the budget committee, since we don't have name tags for everybody. So, Mr. Moore, would you start, please?
Lee Moore, Clackamas River Water. And Todd Hagerton, Clackamas River Water.
I'm Bill Glennis. I'm a citizen member of the budget committee for the Clackamas.
Steve Gashler, board member, Sunrise Water.
Randy Ely, budget committee member, Sunrise Water.
Ron Blake, board member, Sunrise Water.
Naomi Ansher, Clackamas River Water.
Ken Humberston, Clackamas River Water.
Hugh Kalani, CRW.
Wade Hathorn, general manager at Sunrise.
Carol Bragg, I'm the budget officer for today's budget meeting, and I'm the CFO for Clackamas River Water and Sunrise Water Board.
I'm Cindy Richards, the administrative assistant at Sunrise.
Thank you, and let the record show that we do have a quorum. Thank you. Yes, Steve.
Before we get too far down, I'd like to indulge the board's time here for a second. I'd like to introduce Todd Hagerton. He is the, I was going to say new or replacement. I'll use the word replacement general manager for Clackamas River Water. So he's sitting in and I'm here to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're waiting on a couple of people for the budget committee issues, we're going to take care of some business for Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission. I will first ask if there's anyone in the general public that would like to speak under public comments at this time. Seeing none, we will move down to item number 5, board business, amendment to the settlement agreement. Mr. Moore.
For those board members and staff from both Sunrise and CRW, several years back, CRW, Sunrise Water Authority, Oregon City, South Fork Water Board, and Oregon City met to discuss and agree upon a settlement agreement. That settlement agreement expired in March of this year. In conversations with Oregon City, their city attorney has asked that we redraft that as an IGA, and so, and it would extend the term by an additional 4 years. And so the agreement, does everybody have a copy of this?
I don't think so.
We might want to pass that out for folks. The one-page agreement that is now making the rounds is also attached to the original settlement agreement. And essentially, what's being requested of the board is to approve a 4-year extension to the original agreement. That needs to be approved by this board according to Oregon City's city attorney, and then it would have to be approved by both the Sunrise Board, Clackamas River Water Board, the South Fork Water Board, and Oregon City in order to have the extension extend itself. So because of the logistics of trying to do that, what we'll be passing around, and Oregon City is doing likewise, is a signature page for those of you who've been involved in government. That's not that uncommon. And then those signature pages would be attached to the document, and then we will move from there. So that's the order of business that we ask the board to approve today.
So this
I
is,
don't know, Wade, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, unless you just want to give them a short history of what went on. The short story is, right, of course, is that this came as a result of the formation of the CRWSC. There was essentially, if you will, intervention that was essentially put in place, a legal attempt by the city of Oregon City and other parties to intervene in the formation of the CRWSC. This was part of the negotiations to essentially settle to allow for that to happen, and as a result of that, there were some major pieces of agreement that were put into place. And if I recollect, there were kind of three pieces, and maybe Lee can help me with those, but the first was that the city of Oregon City would agree to work with CRW and the engineering staffs on a technical resolution of who would serve what territories, right, in the future, now and then into the future, right?
and this document is an extension of that particular feature.
Right. Along with that, there would be also then, more importantly, as well as the city of Oregon City, as it went to go annex new territory that may be currently served by CRW, a means for financially remunerating, right, the assets appropriately back to CRW for that annexation if they were to take them over, right? And also, I think there were some other issues just generally about service and room and whatever about that, but those are the major pieces that I recollect from it, okay? And there was a deadline for that agreement to be put into place, especially for the technical piece of it, right?
Yes.
And then also how remuneration would go, and I guess they're asking for an extension for that to occur,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
that's what I remember about.
Okay.
Are there any questions by the CRWSC board members? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Moved by Naomi, seconded by Ron, to approve the amendment to the settlement agreement and an extension of 4 years. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, CRWSC board members only, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Passing around that. Who's signing it?
For the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission, it will be signed by Ernest. For Clackamas River Water District, once our board acts on it, it will be signed by Hugh, who's our current president. I'm not sure who the signature will be for South Fork Water Board or the City of Oregon City. So that's who the signatures will be. Do we have any directors' reports this evening?
Not.
Okay. Do we have any general managers' reports? Hearing none, I will.
Did you have a report?
I just have a short inclusion, as you saw, that just a written statement inside of the board packet, if there's any questions about that. But it just really just generally talks about where we've been over the last couple of years and kind of what has gone on and what we expect to move on in the future. It's not unlike most of the quarterly reports we've had in here before, where, you know, we've had a number of successes, we still have some learning that we've talked about, we're attempting to try to do, and also look for further opportunities for cross-coordination and sharing. So.
Well, I will now convene the Budget Committee. And the first order of business for the Budget Committee is to elect a Budget Committee chair. So the chair currently will entertain a motion for someone to be appointed the Budget Committee chair for the purposes of this meeting. Is there a nomination?
You not feeling good, is that what you?
That's correct.
Okay. I nominate you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You may want to approve the budget committee members first.
Oh, excuse me.
And
Thank you. Thank you. Before we, I'm backing up. Thank you. Under general business, approving of the Budget Committee members, is there a motion to approve the members of the Budget Committee?
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and second. Any discussion? Yes.
And I would just like to comment that we did hear from Pat Russell, who was one of the budget committee members from representing CRW, and he is moving out of the area and is quite busy right now, so he will not be attending, and he won't be a member. We just heard from him at the end of last week, so not enough time to find a replacement. So we are going to be one person short.
And also help me out, Carol, but one of the technical pieces here is that we're also not only approving this membership, but also for a period. So it indicates both the biennial periods of budgeting, which were the prior one, 2016 to 18, right? And then the ones in the future, 18 and 20, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's important as well. So
Okay.
that's kind of a technical piece of this.
Let the record reflect that.
Okay.
Okay. So there is a motion and a second on the floor with the provisos as indicated by Mr. Hathorn. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. This is everyone.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we will convene the budget committee hearing and elect a budget chair. The chair will entertain a motion. Go ahead and read it.
Okay, I'll move that elect Steve to be our budget chairman committee, or chairman, budget committee chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would you pass this down to? Thank you.
I'm sure I need that.
Just try to do it by the book as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, next item on the agenda, proposed biennial budget for 16-18. And who will be presenting? Carol?
I can present the budget message. Everybody received their documents about a week ago. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through the documents. This biennial budget is essentially a continuation of the prior budget. We are still working on sharing services and trying to develop efficiencies through both organizations and taking advantage of certain expertise that may be located in one organization or the other and not necessarily both. We're both relatively small organizations. It doesn't make sense, financial sense to have experts in every area on both staffs, so we're taking advantage of that. We have also included a biennial operating plan in the budget document, and this talks about some of the areas that we are sharing and some of the areas that we're not. Customer service is an area that, because of the relationship with the customers of Sunrise Water Authority or the customers of CRW, we haven't integrated those two systems. We do the same thing, but the location being there available for your customers and the relationship that's built with the customers, we've pretty much kept those separate. We're still in the very beginning of looking at integrations with field operations, but again, there's some areas of expertise that can reside in one place or the other that we can take advantage of. An example of that would be the cross connection or the backflow testing. We've also got emergency management, emergency preparedness that's included in that area. We have administrative services. We're looking at both of those, sharing those services. So for example, we've got Cindy here covering this meeting and preparing the agenda and that kind of stuff for these meetings. And we will be, on the CRW side, we'll be implementing a new records management program that will be shared across both agencies in the upcoming year. Finance and accounting, we're sharing services there. We have one accountant on the Sunrise side, and we have I have 3 accountants over here on the CRW side, and again, it's kind of areas of expertise. I have somebody that's got many years of experience with fixed assets, so we're kind of grabbing the expertise where we find it. Payroll services for both agencies is being handled by CRW payroll administrator. Water resources, we're doing a lot of water quality management, flushing, testing, reporting for both agencies from the lab at the CRW plant. Technical services in, this is engineering and IT, there's the GIS staff, and so some mapping services, and we're coordinating those activities as well across both agencies. And we've also developed a IT resource across both agencies that has been working really well. CRW hosts the servers for Sunrise for their regular software and applications that aren't being hosted on the cloud, and we've also got the SCADA server for both agencies as a coordinated server now, so that we can have one person monitor that across both agencies. So that's pretty much the areas that we are working on coordinating. We still have a lot of opportunity to do some other areas, more on the engineering and design areas, and so we're looking to increase the coordination in those areas and hopefully find some cost savings there as well. Do any of the general managers want to step in? Anybody's got any other comments?
No, I'll just add that we have some important planning activities to do as well too in the next year, right? As both look to not only expand and or renew their own facilities, we have to rely on each other to do that, and we can have some shared and coordinated facilities to put together as part of that process. And so some of that planning is going to really step up, and some of it will be necessary for us to figure out how we're going to do that and finance it together, and all the other pieces of it all happen as part of that, right?
And an example of that would be the discussions that are just beginning on the 152nd Avenue Reservoir. That's something that benefits both agencies, and reservoirs are expensive, so we're going to kind of coordinate the design of that reservoir so that it's got the right capacity to be able to provide the services for both.
One of the reasons we got into this was cost savings, and every once in a while we've got a report on approximately how much money we've saved the districts. Do you have any idea what the total savings would be, or annual savings would be, like at this time?
I believe at the last meeting we reported, and it was somewhere around $150,000, and that incrementally that goes up. So we didn't do that report for this meeting because we felt like with the budget committee meeting that maybe we should kind of focus on that. But we can certainly update that and provide it at the budget hearing when the commission board is adopting the budget.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, for my benefit, since I'm a new member to the Sunrise Board since last year's, and this is my first meeting with this commission, so would somebody explain the just general whole purpose of this entity, and then Ron kind of touched on it, but just, and I'm not saying I haven't heard it before, but I guess it didn't really sink in when I heard it the first time, and so while we're here today, if you just take a few minutes and run through that for my benefit, somebody.
This has been a 7-year conversation between the boards. I think Ron and I are the dinosaurs that are involved here. The intent from the beginning was to look for opportunities for both entities to come together to share and reduce or realize cost savings between the entities. And As a result of doing that, we've explored a variety of organizational structures, and at the last joint board meeting, the boards agreed that really the issue of merger was off the table. That's been something that we've talked about on and off again, but there really was an opportunity to look at coordinated services and a way that we could realize the cost savings through that type of an organizational alignment. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it, was to really look for ways that we could work together in order to both improve service level and reduce costs.
So and thank you, appreciate that very much. So for example, the water sales that happen, if this organization wasn't in place, these monies would just kind of be going back and forth between the two existing
We've had the water
districts?
sales, yeah, we've had the water sales agreement for as long as I've been here. But we're in a situation where CRW has a plant that is not operating at optimum efficiency, and we have excess water available. As you know, Sunrise is probably the fastest growing entity. And we know within the metropolitan, in the 4 county areas, but also in the state, I think, and pretty much. And is looking for opportunities to procure or secure additional water rights in order to service the population, primarily now with whatever's going to happen in Damascus. And so by reserving the water that's envisioned under the 190 agreement, which is a total of 10 MGD of water, they're already drawing 2.5, have been drawing 2.5 for quite some time. So for a total amount of 10, that will secure for them some water usage for the future. So, and plus then there's an additional water that's there that is available for both entities that can be sold to whoever's out there that can make themselves or request it. So that's an added benefit. Also, as you know, with water rights, the issue of beneficial use is surfacing. And so CRW runs the risk that if we can't identify appropriate uses for that water, we run the risk of losing some of those rights.
Yeah, I'd only add to the fact that the formality of the fact that we have a separate entity that's been formed by this 190 had a very specific purpose in its intentions, at least when it was put together. At least pointing out, the sort of the operational side of it was to share resources and opportunities for cost savings and those kinds of things that we could put together. We could have simply done those by a series of memorandum of understanding or other contractual arrangements between the two organizations. But having formed this separate entity, it added the feature of its ability to, one, either put its own goods and services contracts together by scales of economy, for instance, right? Where, for example, is a good example of where we've done this. Instead of having 2 SCADA licenses, these are the remote control licenses we use to control facilities from afar. They're run by software operations along with hardware controllers and so on and so forth. Instead of going out and buying 2 different controllers and 2 different pieces of software to sit on top of that, why not just buy a controller, program it appropriately, and buy a single piece of software that would allow both agencies to accomplish its task, for instance, in terms of saving. That's a good example where we went out and actually bought a single license, for instance, under the Clackamas, separate entity, between the separate of the 2 districts themselves specifically, saving a lot of upfront costs, for instance, that go along with the license and so on and so forth as part of the process. That could have easily and has even been discussed about for heavy equipment. It could be extended into labor and all the other pieces that could go on or been contemplated by the boards in terms of how that might go. So it allowed for a separate legal entity to be formed for it to do things that it couldn't do through simple MOU as well. And we haven't taken full advantage of all those pieces as we learn how to do all this together, but it had that ability to do it. And that's what was contemplated behind it. Along with what, as Lee pointed out, the whole notion of resource sharing, and I think they're trying to protect some of those natural resources under a more, what would seem to be at least a more coordinated way of planning for the future of the use of those natural resources and other parts of things that are important to us in our business in the future. So.
Thank you.
One of the things on this is that it's the way we attempted to set it up is so it can grow with the entities. The 190 can grow as CRW grows and as Sunrise grows, and we need different things, or we both need the same thing, but we need more of them. The 190 can become a purchasing agent. It can become whatever the entities need it to become to save funds, save money for both entities. It's one of the, it can become whatever we need it to. Basically, whatever we need it to be, it can probably fit under the 190 agreement.
It also can have new members.
Yeah.
It's not limited to the two of us. If other districts that border us would care to join, they can do so too, and again, increase that economy of scale. There's a lot of advantages to doing it. Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of questions, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Carol, as you know, we had a meeting in February of the two boards. Are there assumptions in the budget, or are the assumptions in this budget the same as the agreement that the two boards had in February?
There are some service levels identified in this budget that are a little bit different than what we've been doing today. There are some reductions in some of the service provided.
So what's different?
We've reduced the purchase of human resources services from Sunrise Purchasing Services from CRW. We've also got a reduction in the financial services provided going forward. And those are the primary differences. And then for the most part, everything else is continuing along the same path.
Okay. Would this impact CRW's budget, our two-year budget?
It does have that potential. As you know, CRW's on a biennial budget, and we prepared that budget a year ago this time.
And I know, as Wade alluded to a little earlier about the 152nd Street Reservoir, that we will probably be discussing and how we're going to go forward with that. Is the chair prepared to accept a motion? Steve?
Yeah. Do we do that before we take public comment and testimony?
You can do it either way, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
you
you probably should take a public comment first. Yeah.
If there is any, so I mean, check earlier it's on the agenda. So is there any public here that has any comment or testimony to offer to the board at this time? Doesn't look like we have any, so I would follow Ken's recommendation and ask for a motion for a member of the board.
Well, in the interest of moving this process forward, I will move to approve the budget as presented, but I would like to add to that motion that the general managers be directed to arrange a meeting of the two boards again, the two full boards, to discuss the impacts of the budget and the changes that may impact CRW, as well as maybe some additional discussion on the 152nd Street project also, since it might be timely. So that would be my motion.
Second? Okay. Motion made by Ken, seconded by Ron.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nobody opposed, so unanimous. So with that,
Steve, can I point something out for you as well, just from a technical point of view, so everyone understands. Your vote right now offers up a proposed budget to each of the separate boards, both Sunrise and CRW. They must approve this recommendation. So what you're approving right now is a recommended budget to those two entities. They in turn have to approve it and or amend it and bring it back accordingly, and they have the option for doing that. It's all built into the schedule. So just make sure that everybody understands that. What we did last time was in fact do that. This board made a recommendation to each of those separate boards. The separate boards approved it, and then it just went forward. There weren't any amendments or changes to it, but there is the possibility of that happening. So Sunrise would have to approve it separately as well as this agreement. Okay?
And then there is a meeting scheduled for June 13th that would be a budget hearing by the commission board to adopt the budget. And at that, I guess that would be like the reconciliation process. You know, if there are any changes made, then that would be the meeting that those changes would be discussed.
so does that embody what you're trying to accomplish?
I'm good to go. Yes.
So thank you for that clarification. Did you have a question?
Just a quick question for scalability. How many customers approximately does Clackamas River Water have, and how many customers does Sunrise Water have? Ballpark.
Yeah, Sunrise has a little over 16,000 customers and growing. Clackamas River Water has about not quite 13,000. And I think on the CRW side, there's some more kind of industrial customers, whereas Sunrise has some commercial customers, but they're primarily residential.
Again, just to clarify, those are connections, not the people that are represented by those, right?
Right.
The population
Yeah.
is much larger.
Accounts.
Those are the actual accounts that are served, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think CRW's population's roughly 80,000. And I don't
Well,
know.
it's 50,000, it's 80,000 if
Oh,
you
wait.
count the volumes of water that go to Sunrise.
Oh, okay.
The wholesale
Okay.
water, so.
I knew there was 80,000 in there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
When you get 30,000 people in there, that's just like
I think it's you guys.
Okay, well, with that, I think I can close the budget hearing. Okay.
And with that, since we already took care of the other business, I will close the regular meeting of the CRWSC board, and we can all go home.